Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick, and this is a new X-Wing rules document that we got yesterday alongside an article on Epic, which we'll talk about in the next video. But for the time being, we're going to go through all of these new rules interactions and talk about how they're going to affect the game. Now, most of these are just minor cleanups of terminology and that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff surrounding tractoring because of the Nantex class entering into the game in various formats. But there are a few power level things here, a couple of design mistakes that have been sort of cleaned up a little bit, so worth going through. For any of you newer players, hopefully I'll be able to make this a bit clearer for you in case you're a bit confused as to why some of these things have been written out like this. So as before, every rules interaction that has changed in this document as opposed to the last one is highlighted in magenta, so we'll just go through all the changes and talk about those. First up, the ability queue. We have this new paragraph here. If an ability requirements are not met, it cannot be added to the ability queue. For example, at the start of the engagement phase, if a ship has an ability that requires it to be tracted, which would be the card Ensnare, for example, but that ship is not tracted, that ability cannot be added to the queue. The ship cannot add the ability to the queue, even if another ability added to the queue at the start of the engagement phase would cause that ship to become tracted upon resolution. Okay, that is a word salad. Let me try and explain that to you in the best terminology I can think of. Basically, there is a trigger at the start of the engagement phase, and every card that says at the start of the engagement phase on a card, a pilot, upgrade, damage card, whatever, triggers all at the same time, and you make the ability queue at that instant. Now, if something within that queue would then add a tractor token to a ship, it doesn't then get to add its if this ship is tracked at the start of the engagement phase because it wasn't eligible when the queue was originally made. That's confusing, and I'm actually not sure what card this is referring to specifically or what interaction. I mean, it's obviously talking about Ensnare when we're talking about that window. Actually, I believe Ensnare's at the end of the activation phase, but it doesn't really matter. I think the key thing here is FFG may be playing around with an upgrade card or pilot card that's going to come out in the next few waves, and they're just hedging their bets now and making sure that the terminology is nice and clean. I actually can't think of a specific ability which this interacts with. There are things like a Sarge Ventress that gives out a stress token, either end of activation or start of combat, one of those. And if there was another card, for example, that triggered at the exact same window and it needed to check for stress, that's the thing as well. If we're talking about Ionization, there's that damage card which caused that ship to get ion tokens when it engages. So if there's another card that says when the ship engaged, if it is ionized, it can't add itself to the queue afterwards. We're talking very theoretical things here. I don't think there's anything currently in the game that is referring to this, but now we know. And look, if everything I said just doesn't make any sense to you, if you're still scratching your head as to what this actually means, it doesn't actually really matter. Just learn the interactions on specific cards when they come out. This is just something that's designed to be nice and clean and universal for judges to know. It's not really important that we as the players understand all of this. But hopefully I made this a bit clearer to some people anyway. Also, if a ship would be removed while there are one or more abilities in the queue, do not remove that ship until there are no abilities in the queue. Again, not really sure what that would refer to, but I suppose it's relevant. If there is an ability in the queue that checks for ships at a certain range, that ship is still going to exist until it's destroyed. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I get the impression that this is going to be relevant for things coming out soon. But look, as always, if I've forgotten something, let me know in the comment section because I'm always keen to know what these rules are referring to. It's always something obscure or something that happened in some tournament somewhere in the world. Okay, moving right along, we are looking at attacking now. And under attack dice, roll attack dice. The attacking player determines the number of attack dice to roll. Starting with the attack value, modifiers increase or decrease the number of attack dice, such as range bonus or other effects, are applied. Next, any minimum or maximum number of dice have been set. That limit is applied. There's always a minimum of 0, then roll that many dice. So it's basically saying anything that gives you a minimum or maximum amount of dice is the last effect that is always applied. And I suppose if there's two different maximums at some point in the game, I mean, there's no way to do that right now. Maybe the lowest one's going to apply. Maybe that'll be clarified in the future. There's not a whole heap of things that does this, for example. Oh, and by the way, this is true of defense dice as well in this paragraph below. That's referring to something like Predictive Shot. If there's anything that affects the raw number of dice when your opponent's using Predictive Shot, that is always the last thing that comes into an effect. So for example, if you're going to add a dice and Predictive Shot lowers the maximum amount of dice you can roll, well, guess what? You don't get to add it. That seems to make the most sense. I would have always assumed that was the case anyway, but it's just good to have that clarified. Moving right along, if a ship is destroyed in an initiative step during the engagement phase, that ship is not removed until all ships of the attacker's initiative have engaged. And basically this is about increasing that window, so you have all the simultaneous fire going on. This is relevant with cards like Console Fire. So if your ship gets removed and there are opponent ships or more of your ships at the same initiative, it doesn't matter that it's destroyed before it shoots. It actually still gets the chance to shoot, and all other ships get the chance to shoot as well. This has always been the interaction with Console Fire, but I think this way of wording it is just a bit cleaner, so that's always good to see. We've got some clarifications on barrel rolls as well. While attempting to place a ship to complete a barrel roll, the barrel roll can fail if any of the following occurs, and if we jump down, if a barrel roll fails, the ship is returned to its prior position before it attempted a barrel roll. If this was part of a barrel roll action, that action fails, which was always the case. I'm not really sure why that's explained, but okay, whatever. Moving right along, if we scroll down, the same thing is true of boosts. Okay, no need to go through that again. We've got some clarifications on devices here. Devices are objects that exist in the play area and are represented by cardboard markers. Certain cards allow a ship to add a specific type of device to the play area and provide additional rules for how that device behaves. There are a number of ways for a device to enter or change location in the play area. Some provide specific instructions on how to place a device in the play area, while others use one or more of the following processes, and talking about launching and dropping and all that kind of stuff. And I think this is a useful paragraph, just making sure that players don't forget that there's rules associated, and when you drop a bomb you do have to refer to those rules immediately. Again, stuff we already knew, but a nice bit of clarification. Most devices are placed during the system phase. Each ship can place a device only once per system phase. Most devices have an associated upgrade that lets the player spend a charge to place the device. Many of these cards are payload upgrades. Didn't know it was called that, I thought they were called devices. When an effect instructs a ship to place a device associated with a different card, i.e. drop one bomb, that ship must pay all costs, such as spending a charge, and place the device as it is associated with the card dictates. Other effects can modify how it's placed, i.e. time bomb and nimble bomber, as normal. Okay, yeah, this is just more clarifications of stuff we already knew. Moving right along. Okay, now this particular rules update here actually does change the power level of a certain effect, and we're talking about Ion here. Now when an ionized ship comes to activate, it does a 1 forward speed as a blue maneuver, and then it can only execute the focus action during its take action step. But additionally now, an ionized ship cannot perform any action except for a focus action. And this is relevant because previously ionized ships could perform other actions, just not during their perform action step. So if there was a card like Supernatural Reflexes that allowed you to take other actions outside the perform action step, you previously could do that, and now you can't, which makes ionization a lot more powerful. Look, Ion isn't a huge thing in the meta right now, so perhaps this is just a slight power level adjustment on FFG's part to try and make it feel more relevant. That's not necessarily a bad thing if it's something that's not really seeing play, so I'm curious about what this can do. I don't think this is something that is hugely swingy in terms of power level. However, we do have to face the fact that we do have things like Jedi Starfighters doing quite well in the meta right now, so maybe this is a good call in just hampering their power level just a tiny little bit. It means people are going to have to play with Ion, which is not something that's been done heaps, so maybe this will help people adopt it. Another clarification on obstacles. While a ship is not executing a maneuver, if it moves through or overlaps an obstacle, it suffers the effects based on the type of obstacle after resolving its move, if applicable. And this is talking about things like Tractor, or if there's any effect in the game that allows you to take a boost or barrel roll through an obstacle. This is just reminding us that, hey, you don't get to then just ignore the obstacle. It's not just when you take a maneuver, it's also when you do these things as well. Any kind of movement through an obstacle means you suffer the negative effects of it. That's always how the game's been, but this is just another clarification. Some cards can also place obstacles during the game in the same manner as devices. This is talking about things like Tobias Beckett, all that kind of thing. Yep, cool. And also it talks about if you place an obstacle below a ship, it must suffer the negative effects of it. I'm not too sure if anything can right now. Tobias can't, because Tobias can't place a rock within the same zone as your opponent's deployment. And additionally, after an object is placed, if it is placed underneath one or more ships, that ship resolves any effects of overlapping the obstacle. So bombs, rocks, whatever, it all applies. Moving right along, remotes, ships can move through overlap, albeit range 0 of remotes. Yes, remotes don't get damaged if you fly through them. This is something that a lot of people asked when they were first revealed. I always default to no. If the rules don't say it, then don't do it. But good to know. It kind of makes sense if you're going to fly through a probe droid that you might blow it up. So, yeah. Not bad to clarify that. Strain. Okay, this is a big one because of the Finn pilot card. Finn really messed with the timing of straining, because it used to be after you defend, you remove your strain token. So Finn would roll his green defense dice, add a blank result, and then he finishes defending and immediately removes the strain, so there is absolutely no downside for him using it on defense, and he can use it over and over again, and that's just fun and fair, and obviously not what FFG intended. So basically this is saying you only remove the strain token after it takes effect on your dice. Once you roll that one fewer dice or do a blue maneuver, which apart from anything else, if Finn didn't even exist, this makes way more sense, because it makes sense that you would do all of the effects of the thing. You take one less dice and you remove it all at the same time. It's just cleaner that way anyway, apart from this interaction. So yeah, great to see this has been done. It was obviously a mistake that's how it worked with Finn in the first place. Good, perfect, moving on. I'm glad they got this fixed up very quickly after Finn came out. That could have been annoying if it saw much more tournament play. Okay, and moving on to Tractor, the other power level adjustment we have here. The first time a ship becomes tracted each round, the player whose effect applied the Tractor token does the boosting and barrel rolling. We know all this already. While a tracted ship defends, it rolls one fewer defense die, which is interesting. We now no longer stack up the effect, and most importantly, now a medium or large base ship must be tracted in order to roll less defense die. Previously, if they had a tractor token, they'd roll one less dice. And this actually means that a large or medium base ship with one tractor token has no negative effects whatsoever. Which is interesting. I mean, I don't really feel like Tractor was that degenerate in the game up until this point. I mean, yeah, quad jumpers were pretty good in the meta for a little while there. But more the point, we have Sun Fac and the Nantex at large entering into the format. I can totally understand that FFG probably play tested them in the environment with this new rule set. It just seems to make a lot of sense. You still do all the really dumb stuff against small base ships. You still get to tractor them after one token. And you're still able to use a card like Ensnare to get rid of your tractor tokens, which is still a good thing, even if you're not taking away your opponent's dice. And I just get the impression, based on what these cards are doing, that this is just an adjustment of power that FFG wanted to do. It makes a lot of sense. Basically, you get all the negative effects as a package once your ship is tracted. Again, that feels nice and intuitive. I don't hate this at all. It might mean that the quad jumpers might get cheaper one day. I mean, we'll see what happens the next points change, but look, I think this is fine. Tractoring can be a very feel-bad thing in the game, so maybe hampering its power level is a decent thing. And as I said, maybe things that do tractoring, like quad jumpers, or even maybe the Shadowcaster might become a bit cheaper. Could be interesting. But also, most importantly, this is a huge thing for big base ships, because now you have to work very hard to give them any negative effect from tractoring. Big base ships have struggled in the meta basically since 2.0's inception, so yes, good. Could be very helpful in shaking up the meta. Not a terrible thing. Okay, moving down to upgrade cards. Some effects can exchange or equip an upgrade card from one ship to another. An effect cannot move an upgrade to a ship that does not meet the requirements set out by the restriction box on the upgrade card unless the effect says equip the upgrade ignoring restrictions. Alright, so this is to do with the upgrade card Sakatra of Azago. Basically, it's saying if you're trying to exchange two illicit upgrades and one of them has a requirement like a cloaking device, small, medium base ship, you can't just put that on your Scum Falcon. Makes perfect sense. I don't think that was a requirement in 1.0. I think that was one of the things we could mess around with in that version of the game. Not that it matters anymore. Also, we are getting As Morrigan in the Epic packs for the Sea Rock Cruiser, one of the Scum cards. And in 1.0, I believe he did a similar thing with Teams and Crew from memory or something like that. Anyway, the card's up on the screen for you guys to see. It's probably another minor rules interaction they're trying to clean up before that one comes out. Seems to all make sense. Also, yes, on the document at the bottom there are a bunch of FAQs, which is pretty much just re-clarifications of all the stuff we spoke about. If you'd like to have a look at those, if you think you need a bit more clarification on some of these interactions, go to the official document. I'll link it down in the description for you guys to see. But yeah, look, I hope that made it a bit clearer for some of you. I don't really think any of this is like super relevant for newer players. It just matters about specific rules interactions, and you'll pick that up as you play the game. The most important thing is, yes, Ion only allows you to do a focus during your entire activation. That has now changed. And ships with tractor tokens don't get any negative effects until they become tractored, as in 1 tractor token for small, 2 for medium, or 3 for large base ships. They don't lose any green dice until that happens. And that's the only real changes that have happened here. And look, just minor clarifications are always a good thing. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. Next, we're going to talk about this epic article. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon as well, which is really the biggest thing right now in terms of supporting this channel. Monetarily, it's really keeping everything going. Look, if you haven't considered it yet, even like $1 a month is pretty significant in terms of my revenue. And it would mean so much if you guys could consider it, if you are able to do that. Thank you so much to all of my existing patrons as well. You guys are freaking awesome, and I'll catch you all in the next video.